As Formula One pre-season testing draws to its conclusion here at Bahrain, I thought I'd take a little look at some of the little technical details that have jumped out at me over the last 3 days. And the first of these really is quite distinctive. It's this on the front of the Alpha Tauri. The nose cone of the car was adorned with what can only be described as horny bits. And they have these lumpy, bumpy sections on the tip of the nose and on the outside sections. You may wonder what they're all about. It's not an aerodynamic innovation. It's not some special super new nose that's going to give them a tenth of a second a lap. These pods at the front, they house little cameras, high-speed cameras on, and they're pointing across the front wing, right across to the end plates, just to monitor front wing deflection. By that, it's front wing flexing. Now, you may all be sitting thinking, wing flexing's illegal. Well, every car has flexing wings. It's how much those wings flex that the team are trying to measure. So that's all Alpha Tauri are doing, but it really did look quite spectacular when it was out on track. The next thing I wanted to take a quick look at isn't really specifically one design or one car, but it's the rear floors in general. And I thought we'd take a look at the Red Bull RB16B's floor, just at the front section behind the barge board. Just pay attention to that big aero fence. That's there to monitor what the wake in this area is doing. So what the air that passes through the barge board and over the front of the car, the team are really studying what's going on and how that air reacts to all of these aerodynamic elements. Note those sticky uppy bits, a long array of those, and then that side fence with that sort of splayed out linear feature. That's really interesting, and once again, it's all to do with just managing the airflow around the wake of the front wheels and just ensuring that little gap between the inner face of the rear tyre and the outer edge of the diffuser is sealed off as much as possible. And also, it's about creating a bit of turbulent flow to kind of seal the edge of the floor and get a little bit of ground effect without those illegal sliding skirts. Something that everybody up and down the pit lane here is discussing is the rake angles of the car. And what that means is the rear ride height, so how high the back of the car sits off the surface of the track. And some cars have a really high rake angle. Other cars have a really low rake angle, and it defines a lot about the aerodynamic forces of the car. You can see on the Aston Martin here a relatively low rake angle, and then on the Alpha Tauri, that's a relatively high rake angle. There is a feeling up and down the pit lane that the cars that naturally have a high rake angle have suffered fewer losses as a result of the new floor rules than those with a low rake angle. And there is some speculation, and I haven't seen enough evidence on it yet, that Mercedes is trying to increase its rear ride height, trying to increase that rake angle. That could be a crucial factor as the season goes on. I've received a huge number of emails, texts, phone calls and comments on YouTube about one car in particular and one feature of that car. And it's not this car, the Haas. The Haas is probably the most conventional car on the grid. We know it's a little bit underdeveloped. But the car everybody's talking about is the one I'm about to compare it to. This, the Alpine, and that massive airbox right up on top of the car. Yes, it's absolutely huge compared to a standard car, as you saw in that comparison. In reality, what's that all about? What Alpine's done is enhance what we call the Centerline Cooling concept. They've taken a lot of the radiators and the coolers out of the side pod of the car and put it up on top, on the centerline of the car. This raises the centre of gravity. That's a bad thing in vehicle dynamics world. However, in aerodynamic terms, those smaller side pods give a bigger lap time gain. Well, that's exactly what Alpine are doing. They're trying to get the best aero performance out of that whole car, and that's simply coming from moving those coolers up to the top. So that's why it looks a little bit bloated on the top of the car. One innovation above all has caught the attention of the paddock and all of you at home. It is, of course, the McLaren rear diffuser. McLaren have found a little loophole in the dimensional technical regulations relating to the rear floor, and they've increased the size of these end fences around the gearbox casing, the underside of the gearbox casing on their car. This has given them slightly larger strakes, the little sticky downy bits in the diffuser, than the regulations really allow. Those were cut in size for 2021 as a result of the rule changes. Now, McLaren have done this, we've all seen it in testing. There are some questions about the legality. I've looked at the rules, I think it is completely legal. But I do think some of the other teams are up and down scouring the regulations, and if they believe it's legal as well, and I think they're going to reach the same conclusion, you're going to see a lot of teams trying to copy that solution. But it's going to take them a few weeks to get that into the wind tunnel, get it working, and get their cars out on track with their own versions of it. That's going to be really tricky, but once they've got it done, that's going to be a real feature of the 2021 Formula One aerodynamic battleground.